Well, good Friday morning. This is Dr. Bill Williams on the Influencers Podcast, coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia. And as we go into the weekend, I think we've got a fantastic day today lined up for you on the podcast. Nicolas MENDIHARAT is from San Francisco, California. He's got a company called WineChain. I think you're going to be very interested in this. This is going to be eye-opening. We're going to combine fine wine with the blockchain. We're going to combine some uh, fun on the weekend. This is going to be an enlightening hour or 30, 40 minutes with our friend Nick. So welcome to Influencers Podcast, my friend. Glad you're here.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for getting up early out on the West Coast. And I know that the wine chain is an interesting topic because it brings to mind uh, investments. It brings to mind the new technology, AI technology, the blockchain, and there's a lot involved here. So let you get started. Tell us where you were, what happened, what was the reason that you started this. You've done a lot in the food industry, particularly with wines, being that you're from France.
Yes, exactly. I moved from
Okay, well, let's
France.
go. Give me your story.
Yeah, I moved from France about 8 years ago to California, then New York. I mean, I'm between the two. And as a passion for wine, and since I was a entrepreneur in technology-enabled company, let's say, mostly e-commerce, ad tech, etc., it came very naturally to me to figure out things to do with my passion, as I always did before. And as a matter of fact, wine business is very big. Most of the people are surprised how big wine is, right? It's 400 billion worldwide. So even if you just take a slice of it, like fine wines, for instance, let's say the very high end of the market, above $50 bottle, that's a $20 billion market, right? So, and there is a lot of trade every year, and wine has a lot of particular things. It's a very old market. It's like wine started 5,000 years ago, so it's very linked to humanity, and therefore, the innovation has never been so easy to move in, because wine is a slow process, particularly fine wine. You have to grow the vines for more than 10 years to get actually very good fruit. Then there's the aging process, etc. So it's an industry which has been thriving and very, very fruitful in general for humanity, and at the same time, it also needs innovation, right, and new cycles. And so we are in this new change. Of course, there's this climate change kind of issues, but there are also distribution changes, and there's consumer behavior changes. So this is why I come in and I applied a certain number of ideas, and particularly here with WineChain, it's applying blockchain technology to the fine wine market. So it's a very specific approach in the fine wine niche.
You came up through the wine industry. You started something called Recommend, and you started something called Palate Club, and so you've refined the offering pretty much. It's like you see an opportunity in the fine wine that's not been available in the past. So tell us, how are you bringing these things together, the fine wine with the blockchain?
Yeah, so Recommend was a recommendation engine, and then Palate Club was taste engine, is AI applied to taste and wine. WineChain is completely different. It came basically on the fact that we wanted to solve a number of problems in the fine wine industry with my three co-founders, which have a long experience in the wine business, as being from the top wineries in France, and also a long experience in e-commerce. One of my co-founders was one of the leaders at Amazon. And globally, what came to our mind is that fine wine distribution today is not working well for the consumer, because you don't have the security of authenticity, because a bottle has been traded and moved a dozen times before it's drunk, right? you don't have the security of perfect storage. So the way wineries and winemakers meant that wine would be drunk is not necessarily there, the quality when you drink it. On the other side, wineries don't get much of the value they actually create. The reason is very specific to wine, is because of offer and demand, and because of the long process of producing, and because demand is growing so much. Usually wines, when they're drunk, have increased in value a lot. Actually, the fine wine index is measuring, performance of wine investment, and it beats the S&P 500 by far in the past 30 years. So what happens is a winery sells a wine case for $1,000, let's say, to trade. Then there's multiple middlemen. That case usually trades then a month later for $1,800 or $2,000. And then over time, by the time it's drunk, has been traded through different professional trade people, and it's sold for $5,000. So if you compare this to creators in industries or whatever, let's say artists or the music industry, that is a very low part taken by the winery, the artist, because that is artistry and that is very, very, very specific. So the other problem for wineries is that they don't know their end consumers in that process, and they don't even know whether wines are strong, right? So it's very frustrating for them, and it's not basically a fair share. So the reason why this happened is because wine value has increased so much in the past 30, 40 years, and also because it's a very regulated industry. So because of that, basically, if you're in a position in a country, whether you are a distributor, an importer, or whatever else, you're making good money with the roots of wine. And when it's fine wine, you're actually doing almost the same service as if it's just regular wine, but you're getting paid way more in the margin as a margin here. So what we've built at WineChain is a complete different aspect. It's a direct-to-consumer channel for the wineries where the wine doesn't move anymore. So we, in that process, guarantee that the wine is authentic from the winery just because it didn't move. It's also better for the planet because there's no carbon footprint. Basically, the wine doesn't move throughout the years all the time. And it can be traded through its corresponding NFT. So it's basically creating a digital twin, a smart contract attached to physical bottle, which is not so digital and physical, what some people call phygital, and enabling people to trade that on a peer-to-peer marketplace. Think of eBay for fine wine among real consumers, which doesn't exist today. Basically, all the secondary markets of fine wines are dealt with professionals. So it's not, and the prices are not defined by the market itself and the consumer itself. It's defined by professionals moving wine across borders. And so in that process, the wineries get to talk and sell directly to the market. The market and the consumers can sell among each other, build their collections, and have a perfect storage, which we take care of, and get shipped everywhere on their behalf, which is a service we do in the site, which is a logistics service, which is a very complicated task to do as well, because of alcohol compliance, because of quality of shipping. You absolutely want to have refrigerated shipping for fine wine, of course, and all these things. So we decided to build that new route with new technology. Blockchain enables that because it enables the tracking and it enables the perfect move of the smart contract, basically the perfect registering, in the ledger of the ownership. It enables also to open the market to new consumers. Because if you think of the younger generation today, who is a lot into crypto, Web3, and understands the logic of decentralization, they also want to have a direct relationship with the luxury brands they communicate with. And with that logic, with a digital token, if you will, you create that relationship much simpler, actually, and much clearer as well. So this is why so many luxury brands now have created their digital tokens, their NFTs, and whatever. By the way, in our case, we call that a wine FT. So we created our own little brand because it has its very particular perks and very particular approach.
Well, it sounds, Nicholas, like you've been describing a fix, how your company has answered a problem in the industry. You go directly from the vine to the bottle to the table, skipping a lot of the storage, changing from one location to another, but more importantly, keeping the cost down by having less middlemen. So the winery gets more, the consumer probably gets a better deal, and then everybody wins.
Exactly.
Tell me, is there anything else that you're doing to create a success? We talk about the failure of the past system, too many middlemen, maybe not storage right, and wine's not as fine as it would have been. What else is there that you have overcome?
Well, I mean, it's one of the biggest issues is the risk of counterfeit as well, right? At a certain point in China, there was a number, really scary number, 25% of fine wines were supposed to be fake. So it might have gone down from that number, but if you're buying something which is $1,000 worthwhile, you want to make sure it's true, right? So, I mean, whether it's a bag, whether it's a bottle of wine, but particularly if it's a bottle of wine, because you're putting it in your system. So, I think in that way, it's one of the areas where there's not been enough technology involved, enough security involved, so that you're sure that it's not a counterfeit, right? So, I think that's one of the things we are correcting as well.
What motivates you to go into this? What was your primary thought as to why this would be where you would spend your time?
I think when you start a company as a founder, it's a combination of factors always. I see this as, a lot of strays of lights, if you will, which wake you up at night. So once you start to think of something where you don't get much sleep anymore, because the mix of passion, of interested people in what you're saying, what you're doing, the number of people, I think what motivates me more, the most of everything, is putting people together for a project like that, whether it's a team, whether it's investors, whether it's co-founders, whether it's customers, obviously, all the stakeholders, basically. When you create a new company, a new project, new mission, new vision of stuff, you're going to create a dent in a certain universe, right? Not in the entire universe, obviously, not that crazy, but you're going to create a dent in a market, in people's lives. I mean, if it's a very successful company and millions of people are using it, of course, it creates a real change. And so I think the idea of putting people together, working on something really hard and achieving stuff, and that you're kind of the ignition of that and then the architect of that, is what motivates me personally, and what makes me wake up in the morning, and what makes me start projects like that. But again, it's a combination. It's not one thing. It's a lot of strays of lights.
So you see it, you want to build it, you have that entrepreneurial spirit in you. Does your company have a motto, WineChain?
Yeah, I mean, it's making the fine wine world a better place, right? So it's definitely a little bit what you touched up front, is it's better for the consumer, it's better for the wineries, for the makers. We've put like decades of work into their thing, and it's better for the world because the wines don't move all over the place. So it's very bulky. So the carbon footprint is important too. So
It sounds to me like you have already started identifying success secrets from the model you use. adding things to the blockchain for security, bringing the wholesale price probably down from the point of purchases, but also it raises the price for the producer. So what other success secrets have you built into this?
Yeah, I mean, if you think more globally, this is my seventh startup. So if I look a little bit back over the past 25 years of building businesses, I mean, you can read so much about, secret sources and successes all over the internet. I think, in my opinion, one of the key things is people. So you need to surround yourself with positive, successful people who want to help you, as opposed to what I call vampires. It's not so easy to detect vampires before. Vampires basically are sucking your energy, your blood. They're always taking something from you and they never give back. It's not about always, I give you this and you give me back. It's more about if you surround yourself by the right people, which is this positive energy, you're going to get more energy yourself and you're going to grow. The second thing is the time management. There's been so much which has been said about time management, the 80-20 rule, etc. So I'm not going to go through all that. I think the one thing is less obvious and has not been said together so well, is that you should mix the 80-20 rule with the moment of the day where you're the most efficient. So it is about doing the 20% of your work, right, which does the 80% of efficiency, but doing that at the moment in the day where you're the most efficient. If you are capable of knowing and understanding that, let's say, between 10 a.m. and noon, you're the most efficient, and you're capable of moving all the disturbances or whatever which is not so efficient, just concentrating on what is most important exactly at that time, you're going to achieve way more if that becomes a pattern. So it's a combination of time management, right, and focus on the important things. And then I think another thing is about making decisions. People make decisions based on gut feeling and based on analytics, on data, right? And certain people do it more on one end and certain people do it on the other end. So I think the best way to make decisions is not like, there's no, again, like common rule. The best way is to move from one to the other when you've hit a wall. Basically, when you start to analyze too much and you're still not convinced by your decision, you need to move to your gut feeling. And when you are too emotional and you are too much listening to, oh, I should do this and that, this is where it becomes dangerous and you have to move to analytics. So the yin and the yang of that is, I think, the real secret of people making most of the time good decisions, right? So analysis and gut feeling, emotions.
Analysis, paralysis by analysis. You want to avoid that. I see that.
Exactly. It's a combination.
Hey, now we're going to talk about the consumer, the end user. Why should somebody buy from WineChain?
So for WineChain, you would have three types of interested people where we would be a perfect fit for them, right? So you have the passionate wine aficionado who as a consumer appreciates great wine. The reason why he would buy from us is for the authenticity, perfect storage of the wine, so he knows it's going to be the best wine, and also access, because we're backed by the very top and some of the most rare winemakers and bottles, which are sometimes produced only by 1,000 bottles, and so you can't get those. So for the wine connoisseur who really appreciates certain stuff and what's the best product, that's amazing sourcing he can't get elsewhere. Or if he gets it elsewhere, that might be way more expensive. Then there is a collector. The collector today, the wine collector, you probably know some people in your friends who have small or bigger collection of wine. They love to show it. They love to collect, etc. But it's not. It's complicated to move, right? And particularly now we are more and one since particularly the pandemic. We're working from there. We're staying 3 months here, 2 months here. So building your cellar in the cloud with us enables much easier to manage it as a collection for the future, and decide to ship it there and there, where you might not know where you're going to be in 10 years. So and actually, particularly moving a collection across border is very complicated. So that's a very good service for you in that case, also because the collection you're going to build is probably going to increase in value over time. Which brings me for the third type of people who should buy from us is people who are looking to invest in wine. In the sense they don't know yet if they're going to, as a collectible, I mean, like as art, right? So not as a security or like, it's not an asset management. It's you should invest in wine through passion, because you believe that this is something which you might, worst case scenario, drink, and if not, then there's low chance that it goes down over time. It can, but it's pretty rare, and it's higher chance that it goes up. So if you think of allocating part of your future investment into collectibles or art, in that case it's great for one reason, because we're building this peer-to-peer marketplace. So you're going to be able to, if you have too much wine, to offer it to other consumers on a global world market, which is impossible today. Today you would have to go to an auction firm or to a local merchant or something. By the way, all this is not investment advice. When I say the investor logic, for instance, you should not go into wine in the logic of speculating like you would buy stocks, right? This is not, the WineChain is not for those people. If you're trying to buy something here and then sell it the next day making a profit, that is not. I'm talking about people thinking long term and saying, oh, I should have a wine cellar, and it was in the past 30 years a very good investment.
Of all those people, who's your best client? Who's your favorite client?
My favorite client today would be, and it's also the first batch of clients we had, is usually younger people who understand crypto, NFTs, and understand blockchain, the good side of it, and why it's very useful and why it's going to thrive in different fields. And are in their, I would say in their 30s often, sometimes 40s, and start to really enjoy wine, appreciate very good wine. They don't necessarily have all the knowledge and education about it, but they understand the difference, they make a difference. And therefore, they are the combination of the two factors. And obviously, they love what we do.
Now, do you go back looking for these people, these young, savvy, tech-savvy people in a certain way? Do you find them?
Yeah, there's many ways of marketing to find your ideal client. I believe the best and most efficient marketing has always been word of mouth and community building, in the sense that if you're building a top product and for certain people, the right market, they will love you and they will find you much easily, and they will, of course, tell their friends. So I'm a very strong believer of that. And of course, it's very easy to say, and it's much harder to execute. And obviously, you still need marketing so people can find you. So there's many ways of marketing. I'm not going to describe the 12 different marketings we're doing today. Influencers is a type of marketing I really like when it's pretty genuine. It's an influencer who really likes to talk about your product because he feels aligned with it. And I like as well building partnerships with, but meaningful partnerships, long-term partnerships with platforms or medias who have the audience, which is a good fit for us.
Yeah, I know what you mean by making partnerships. We made a partnership in our company with Supercars Majlis in Dubai, which has things all over the world. And, you're talking about the luxury market. People who can afford $1 million automobiles can also afford $1,000 bottles of wine.
Obviously.
One of the questions I've got revolves around, will spirits go the way of the wine in the blockchain?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Will spirits like bourbon
Oh.
and scotch go the way of wine on your blockchain concept?
Yeah, I mean, there already exists a few platforms which do spirits exchange through NFTs and the blockchain. And also, like, old whiskeys, old rums have also increased in value tremendously in the past few decades. The only thing is the roots, the producers, the amateurs of spirits is slightly different as a market. I mean, I'm talking about the very high end, of course, is quite smaller than the high-end wine market so far. But it's definitely on our roadmap. I think on the technology side, what we've built corresponds perfectly for spirits as well as for other actually assets. We could totally have other consumer assets there. But again, there is compliance regulations are slightly different with spirits and wine depending on the countries. So you need, it's not so easy to go from one to the next. But we definitely have that on our roadmap in the future.
We've heard that the luxury market is the most profitable area right now for investments, and like the fine art market is still pretty strong considering we're in recessions in many places. Is the wine market similar to the fine art, or is it more of a lower return on investment if you're talking about the investment grades?
So if you look at the past 30 years, there is fine wine indexes. It beats the S&P 500. It's on average, I think, around 10% ROI per year. So it's really, really strong. You have to deduct storage costs as well. So, it depends what you're looking at. And there is no, like, if you compare to stocks, for instance, you can't necessarily integrate dividends and these type of things. But compared to art, it has a similar curve. More or less, even during the crisis of 2009, the prices dropped only during 6 months, and then they recovered very quickly. And same thing with today. There is a slight, slowing down, slight drop. So I think on the long term, the trend we have seen the past 30 years, I mean, again, this is not investment advice, but I mean, who knows better? What I see is the number of people who enjoy top fine wines and who have access to it and who want to have the means to it increases a lot in the world, particularly in Asia. Now it's becoming a thing in India, where it started really strong in China 15, 20 years ago. And a lot of people say, for instance, the Chinese market is just still at the beginning, etc. And there's a lot of other markets which in Asia, not only in Asia, which are starting with fine wine just now. And it wasn't a thing at all. So demand is globally growing, even though it's flattening in the US or in Europe. But even in the US and Europe, if you look at the numbers in details, the younger generation drink less, which is good, less alcohol, but they spend more per bottle. So the trend is, I'd rather drink less alcohol, but when I get a good bottle of wine, I'd rather put more money to get better quality, which I think is a very good trend.
That doesn't speak well for Boone Farm.
For sure. And so global demand for high quality is increasing, and I don't see how it will not continue to increase. When you look at production is stuck because it's a very complex. First of all, you have climate change right now. If you look at the past 5-10 years, the production of very top wines hasn't increased because you have one year you have hail, the other year you have frost, then you have fires, then you have this and that. So, we just had a very good yield for the 2022 vintage in Burgundy, for instance, but that was the first good yield in 5 years. So it's really hard to produce more. And also the process of producing more top wines is a combination of not only nature, what nature gives you, it's all the best terroirs, the places where you can grow the best grapes are in specific places which are already full. And so discovering new places is a very long-term process, right? And then you have to plant the vines. That's a long-term process too, until they give great fruit. And then you have the artistry of the winemaker. Usually, the very top wines are at that level because the winemaker has embedded 20 years, decades, sometimes centuries of knowledge of that particular place terroir, of how you make wine there. It's made of hundreds of little choices, right? It's like art. And so, if you could just decide that a bottle of wine is $300, yeah, well, you can do that with marketing maybe for 2 or 3 years. But at a certain point, the professionals and the consumer cannot be fooled. So there is the production of top fine wines is not going to increase as fast as demand. So then I let you imagine the outcome of that.
Well, Nicolas, I think that's a great explanation of the variety of what you have to look forward to in all this wine choices and where they come from, how they're prepared. But as WineChain, what is the well-defined product? This must be the best liquid asset we've ever heard of.
I wish. I think there's a lot of other liquid assets, depending how you put the word. Very simply, we have a product and service for the end consumer, which is simply you're buying wine. You're buying wine from the winemakers, or you're buying wine secondary from other people who have bought from the winemakers straight. It's only from the winemakers, directly from their cellars. And so we are just enabling that. So we are not the seller on record. We're not like selling you wine. We are enabling the wineries to sell their wine directly to you and then buying from others the same wine. In that process, we add a service, which is storage, which is for fine wine quite marginal. Typically a case of fine wine is $1,000 and it costs about $19 a year of storage, so it's not like very heavy. And we're offering it the first year, by the way. And we are offering the service of shipping as well. So it's basically you ship the wine to yourself, your own wine to yourself. And we're doing this in many, many countries. So that's our products and services. And basically for the wineries, our service is the way to put it to the market, obviously, and also to create a sort of CRM with their customers so that they are directly in line with their customers.
I don't want to really push this one too far, but I couldn't resist it. How do you crush your grapes so that your competition is also?
I never had that. I always have the competition question coming up when you're talking to investors or journalists, but never in that way. Congrats on that. How do you crush your competition? Well, I think it would be arrogant to say you're crushing your competition, even if you do so. In our case, we don't really have much competition. You have a lot of ways to buy fine wines, obviously, in the world, but people doing what we are doing, there are not really many. There's a few people doing some of what we do, but like globally as a product and service, they are not. So my response to you would be like, we crush the competition by the fact that there isn't, because what we do is really hard to do. and the components of the defensibles, if you will, which are really hard to do, is of course technology piece. I mean, doing smart contracts today adapted to that industry is hard, right? Because there's a lot of specifics in wine. The other things which are really complicated is navigating alcohol compliance, crypto compliance, blockchain compliance, depending on the countries, is really, really tough. So it's not because the world doesn't want it. We have a lot of support, including from regulators, etc., because we're doing the right thing. The problem is it's the maturity of understanding of all regulation. And the reason is you have all the regulations for alcohol, which are not adapted to today, and you have not enough regulations for crypto, which are changing all the time. So you have on one side, you have something which is not moving and not fast enough. On the other side, it's moving too fast. So that creates defensibles, because when you're focused and navigating on this, obviously with the right team, I would say my biggest competitive advantage today is our team. We have a team of super experts in the field, in every field we need, and backers. We are backed by a lot of big names in the logistics side and the winery side, technology side. So that helps a lot. And so that's my response to you.
If you had to start over, or if you were young and wanted to kind of create a new path for yourself, what would you give advice to your 20-year-old self?
I would give to myself, learn a lot, read a lot, and surround yourself by people where you can learn more. So whether they're experts, by the right people. So I, for instance, spend too much time, I think, in my 20s, not reading enough, not having access enough. I mean, the internet was just the beginning, so it was not so easy to have access. I mean, I could have written books, I have no excuse. But today, younger people have so much access to information that it's almost unfathomable that you're not learning a lot if you're ambitious, right? And I was a little bit surrounded by people. And that time I was in Paris. I had some very good people surrounded myself, and some people which didn't make me grow. So I think, I lost too much time doing this or that. And so if I had known how important it is to make sure you're surrounded by the right people make you grow, I would definitely have done that more. So that's the type of advice.
Let me ask you this. When it's all said and done, Nicolas, what would you like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for having created something positive for the people who have encountered me in their life, right? So whether it's co-founders, collaborators, friends, family. So I think it's what you bring to others or to the planet is the most important. If you make their environment, their life better. So if I leave this world and people remind of me positively, and thinking that I brought them something positive in their life, that I would be happy. That's success.
There's a famous commercial around here that says, I will drink no wine before it's time. So what's the ideal time a wine should be drunk?
Well, it depends if it's short time or long time. I think the wine should be drunk with your friends and family. I think it's a thing together. I rarely drink wine alone. It's a thing to be shared, and particularly when it's the very best bottles. So the very best bottles, you keep them because there's an emotional relationship with it, and you want to share that emotional relationship with the people you love, right? Or people you like. Sometimes it creates new bonds. I shared some amazing bottles with people sometimes I didn't know before, and just because we are sharing that bottle, that something happened. And I really make a huge difference. It's not only on how bad pesticides or whatever bad wine can be, and how much better, because there's pure organic and nothing added, and the finesse and the fine touch of the winemaker, good wine can be. It makes such a difference, and makes such a difference in the feeling. So for me, the timing of the different sort of quality of bottle is linked to people. The other thing is I'm a pretty big fan of food and wine pairing. I think very good bottle of wine sublimes food. So time for a very good meal is a little bit sad without a very good bottle of wine.
How can we support WineChain and you? Do you have any links to have people reach you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we're on social media everywhere. It's easy to find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. So please follow us if you're interested about what we do. Obviously, winechain.co is our URL. Register profile, subscribe to a newsletter, whatever you will, to keep in touch. For those of you who want to create a full cellar in the cloud, if you will, and allocate a real long-term cellar investment, we have a concierge service for that. It's free. It's not like it's not like investment advice. It's just that we help you with, like, for instance, if you want more red, more white, more Burgundy, more Italian wines, etc. So we help you just to navigate our website and stuff. So you can reach out to us with that as well.
Excellent. I hope people will do that. What would you say about your guest experience on the Influencers podcast today?
Well, it's very well prepared, and you are a very good interviewer, so I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Lots of what I like the most is that the questions are not trivia. They're not like the classical, just basic questions. Every one of your questions have a little twist.
Thank you very much for that. I want to give you the last 30 seconds of our show today on your own. So what would you tell our audience?
Well, enjoy a glass of wine, enjoy life at the best moment. Sometimes take a step back, relax, and you might actually have a better decision and a better feel for yourself. Wine is linked to our humanity for a very long time. There is a reason for that. And our very stressful, very hyped, very fast lives today, we sometimes forget to have a step back and enjoy and relax. So consider it as a moment for yourself and not as booze. I don't like to consider wine. I don't drink wine to be drunk. I drink wine because it's a good feeling. So that's my final word.
Excellent. Thank you very much for sharing that. It's been Nicolas with the WineChain, the new thing on the block for fine wines. So investment grade, collector grade, things that will change your palate, not just your life. I want to appreciate you for being on our show today, Nicolas. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, my digital business card is this. It's also the QR code where you can attain freedom. If you want freedom, enough income to buy fine wines, then maybe you would be wise to click on that QR code and see what we're doing. In the Influencers podcast, you can find out all about the different podcasts we've done at drbillwilliams.tv. Or if you want to find out about our income potential, you can go to this URL. So we are all about AI technology and improving your life, making it easier with AI. Got something coming up today at 12:30. Some of you may want to see this. This is a big reveal from Dubai. So we're going to have quite a show on what is OConnect and what it's going to do. It's the international unveiling today at 12:30. So the big reveal will be live on YouTube for people to see. If you want to follow that, you can catch that right in about 2 hour and a half from now. Hey, Nicholas, thanks for being here. I look forward to seeing you. And if you can connect with me anytime in the next few years, we're going to sit down and have a fine wine bottle together.
With big pleasure. Thank you, Bill.
I look forward to it. Thank you for being on the Influencers Podcast. See you all for another session in just a while. Have a good weekend.